that before humans were still animals emotionally run by instincts, and that the whole society's teaching pattern had to do with boogeyman and spooks in the closet, aliens in the air, sky daddies, and magic here, there, and the other thing, and all kinds of things to make us afraid. And so we did really well to make our society quite safe, and yet the people are all still afraid.
Yeah.
And so now that we've figured out how to make society safe enough so that we're actually safe, let us now go that next step and learn how to live our lives feeling safe. So we're talking about an insight that you had that is quite remarkable, but you don't even understand in the Buddhist context just how remarkable that point is. And so we're talking about the fact that you recognize that you're not a fixed person, that your personality, though developed and sometimes crusty, is not who you are,
Yeah.
and it can be changed. And this has enormous ramifications for it in all kinds of ways and places. And so it's almost like an integral part of the path. It is the path. That in fact, what we're actually talking about here is you've heard of possibly the concept of 10 fetters.
I've heard of it, but I'm not familiar with what it is.
Okay, 10 fetters, three of which go at one stage, and then a couple of more fetters, and then eventually all of the fetters go away. And that the fetters that we're talking about, the first one is personality view, and the second one is understanding Silabhata Paramasa, or how the self relates to the world. And when we're practicing Dhamma enough, then we figure out what is the path and what is not the path, and we become completely free of doubt. And so there's these first three fetters that have to be eliminated. And when one does, one is definitely considered on the path. So this is the first fetter to go, and I want to resoundingly congratulate you for coming up with this on your own without even having to use the traditional Buddhist language that I'm more prone to use. But yes, to recognize that you are free
Yeah.
of even who you thought you were.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still a bit crazy. And when I had the initial realization, it was so strong that my mind was blown for the whole day. I think I was just like, what is this? And then, it receded a little bit, and I was kind of, I've been in and out of that, different mind states and stuff, but it's continued.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of come back to it each time quite quickly, which is
Well, this
interesting.
is, in fact, uh, such a major milestone in the life of human beings that this milestone is often made in other contexts. And one of the examples of another context that I'm thinking about is Friedrich Nietzsche, who said, God is dead and I am free. He's talking about this exact same experience. He's just using a completely different language for it. In other words, the past is actually dead. That this moment really does exist, and we're free in this moment because who I thought I was in the past no longer applies. That's why he said God is dead. Not that God does not exist, never did, and never will. That's not the point. The point is that the past becomes dead now.
That's what it felt like as well. It felt like old Olivia had to die.
Yeah,
Like that
right.
had to die, like literally. And you talk to some people about that and they're like, oh, that's really morbid and weird. But actually that just makes me excited. That way of being caused me to be caused a lot of suffering and has ultimately caused me to be quite ill at the moment. I think that's a big reason why I've kind of got to this place. And so I don't want that anymore. Like, I want to create something else.
Well, again, congratulations. And again, you recognize that in some ways that it was a process, and part of the process was the fact that there was some resistance to it.
A lot of resistance to it, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's quite typical also, because in a way, we spent a whole lot of time trying to figure out who we were. And now we recognize that a lot of time and effort that we have put in was was not worth our time and effort. That we did
Yeah.
not get good, that we in a way we wasted our time. Or
Yeah, that's
another
also what like, yeah. So a
another
lot of
way
my
of
life
thinking
has been
about it is a
wasted.
bit of and another way of looking at it is in the fact of being angry at the fact that look how many lies you had to believe and how many falsehoods went into the construction of that old Olivia.
Yeah.
And not only that, but then because of that, how important she was.
Yeah.
And now that you recognize that that was kind of false, there's going with the analogy of Nietzsche, because these things are deeply interrelated, is that many atheists, when they begin to figure out that they have been lied to in their religion, they go through a period, and sometimes that period of time will last for 10 or 20 years, of being really pissed off at the
Yeah.
fact that they've been lied to.
Yeah.
And so they get stuck in fighting with the old lies rather than turning around and moving on, which is the right way to do it. Okay, well, I'm glad I'm finished with that. Now let's let it go.
It is
Okay.
very tempting though to cling to that. Like I did have a while, and I still do get it sometimes when I look back and I see things that had happened, and it is frustrating that I bought into that and I didn't kind of trust myself more. But like you said, it happened, and now I can get on with it. And it's the same when
Mhm.
I go into unwholesome thoughts, and then I notice that I've gone into unwholesome thoughts.
Uh-huh.
It's really tempting to go, "Oh, I went into unwholesome thoughts. What an idiot! Blah, blah, blah. I'm never going to do this." Instead of just going, "Oh well," and then
Oh
just coming
well.
out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard
Uh-huh.
to not do that because I think we're
Yes,
so
that's what
trained
the
into
old
kind of
Olivia
remorse
was
and
trained to
that.
say.
Yeah, well,
That's what the
exactly.
old
Yeah,
That was what the old Olivia was trained to say. There you go again. You're stuck in it. You're not going to be able to get out of this. You're always going to be in there. Okay. And you're
yeah,
recognizing that critical kind of thinking was just old learned behavior, and that you don't have to continue to repeat it.
and it's what mean, like you said, it's all it is just an old behavior, but we put so much meaning on that behavior that that's what gives it the weight and the power. Like,
Hmm?
but if you take the meaning away, it's like, oh, it's just a pattern. Like, big deal, doesn't matter. But,
Exactly. And so, in a way, what we're talking about now is a newfound power, in the sense that that old stuff had power over you, and now you have power over it through knowledge.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is actually why we talk about spiritual power, is because this is, in fact, the budding of the power, is that you know that you can take care of things now. This is also that attitude change that we've been talking about. And it becomes powerful to be in the present moment. Even Eckhart Tolle has a book by the name of The
Yeah,
Power
power of
of the
now.
Now. Exactly. And what we have been doing is we have been allowing the past to have the power.
Yeah,
And to now, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to hold that power for the present moment. And that power then is also the power of joy. It's the power of the knowledge. I can take care of this. I can handle this. I do not have to be afraid of this. I can take care of it.
Yeah.
Isn't that marvelous?
Yeah. It's good.
And in a way, it was the old Olivia who not only had the power, she needed it desperately in order to survive what she thought was the onslaught of dangers. Now you're recognizing that those dangers that she was so afraid of are not real.
Yeah. I did feel constantly I was constantly in fight flight because I constantly felt like there were dangers all the time.
That not only is the way that Olivia was behaving in a set routine, she was behaving in a set routine against fears, doubts, and problems that were always also in a kind of a set routine. And so, actually, what I'm doing is now I'm introducing to you the second fetter, or where do we go from here? And that
Yeah.
is now that you have an understanding that you are not who you were, that who you are is only in the present moment. And that's so complex that we couldn't possibly do an inventory in time for it to be now. that, that if we did an inventory, when we start the inventory, by the time we finish the inventory, we're a different person. We have to tear that one up and start over again.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
That
sense.
things are moving too fast for manageable inventories, and so what we have to do is kind of understand that who we are right now is okay without having to deal with all of the complexities of the moment. But understand that the complexities of the moment are mind-boggling complex.
Yeah.
Just this present moment is so complex, but we learn to manage it because we're quite comfortable in it, in this present moment. No problems, no worries, no dangers. Everything is okay. And so, what that does is it kind of allows us to just enjoy the show.
So it's being okay with kind of where you are now without needing to know every minute detail of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of just it's letting go of that. A
Even
bit
letting
like
go of that.
if you saw a plant or something, being able to just enjoy the plant without knowing every single like inch of biology of the plant and the soil and all of that.
Precisely. Enjoying a plant in the moment is not the same as first going to the dictionary, then going to the encyclopedia, then going online and finding all and reading and writing books on a particular plant. People do that. But the
That's what I
child
used to feel
just
like in
sits in
my
front of the plant, mesmerized in joy with just looking at the plant without having to know all of its details and features.
that's what I used to feel like in my degree a lot. But there is obviously value in knowing things about like scientifically about things obviously, but they kind of do it to the expense of seeing the big picture. And so you would like look at say cells under a microscope or whatever without
Mhm.
knowledge of where they like the whole organism and how that's interrelated to everything on the planet. And so it was a
Yes,
very kind of specialized thinking
yes.
instead of
Hmm.
putting that into the bigger picture.
Well, actually, what we're pointing at here is curiosity.
Yeah.
okay, as opposed to doubt.
Right.
That when we see things as overly complex and therefore it's got fear built into it, it's got doubt. But when doubt is actually fearless, it's jumping curiosity.
Right. No, I
It
see what you mean.
it has joy built into it.
Mm,
And so this is when scientists are really, really successful, is when they're joyously curious
yeah.
about what they're doing. And so this joyous curiosity is the right way to experience the world anew, rather than already have decided what it was and seeing it both dangerous and broken and needing to be fixed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And then
Which
having
is
that expectation, so then you can't see things as they are now because you're always comparing
so
it to what you've decided in your head, even though that was just a concept anyway.
exactly. All right. So joyous curiosity of this present moment is quite useful, and it's also in a way nurturing. But if we think we already know what it's like, then we do it in the sense of critical. In fact, when I use the word critical thinking, I take a particular definition of the word critical to point directly at the second noble truth. In the sense that when we're critical, we make judgments, or when we're critical, we say this is good and this is bad, or this is good and this is better. And what that winds up doing is that means that we like some things and we don't like others. When we like something, we want it. When we don't like it, we try to get rid of it. And all of that mechanism happens ignorantly. And this is what we call critical thinking. So when we apply critical thinking to our own mind, critical would be, oh, the mind wanders away. Oh, the mind always wanders away. Oh, I can't help the mind but wandering away. This meditation stuff is really hard. All right, you can hear all that critical in there. Um, in the other way, we could say nurturing thoughts of, oh, aha, I see the mind has wandered away. Never mind, start again.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can now expand that critical nurturing concept also to the entire reality in which we live. Our environment, our immediate environment, that which touches or somehow contacts your senses. And I would like to give you that as the new definition of the world. The world is the world in which you live. When we think of the world or even the universe as a kind of a similar word, when we think of the universe, we don't think of our immediate environment. We think about stars and galaxies and outer space and things that are way far away.
Yeah.
But similarly, so when we think of the world, we think of, in fact, things that are on the furthest part of the planet, also very far away. And so, what we want to get into is not just to be now, but to be here, that our world is here, it's within our senses. And it's this world that needs our nurturing, the world we actually live in, not the far flung places that are nothing but a concept in the mind. So we're talking about a real here now. And when someone walks up, then we need to present with them also that curious, joyful curiosity.
Yeah.
And we start dealing with people that way. This is what is often referred to as metta. But really, metta doesn't do anything but translate immediately into the word kindness.
Mm.
Just kindness. And so metta for yourself is just being kind to yourself, just being nurturing. And so now that we're beginning to be nurturing to ourselves because we recognize that that old stuff, who we thought we were, really is malleable, changeable, and not really fixed or set or needs to even be fixed. And in fact, it's old and it's gone into the past and dead to the world of now, here now. And so that means that we can take any relationship with any of our friends, acquaintances, and everybody and make it brand new, rather than having to deal with them as if they were in the past also. And so this is a new world of new way of dealing with the world. And these two fetters work together in the sense of that we thought that we knew how things should be. We thought we knew how things ought to be. That should and ought are the key words for that critical mind, that critical thinking.
Should have, would have, could have.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda, right. And all of that has to do with feeling bad, because it has to do with the past that can't be changed. With all the scientific experiments that we've ever had, we've never been able to change a past experiment.
No.
They talk about time travel, and we don't have it. In fact, there's a very good reason to see why it doesn't, and that is the situation of some things have cause and effect, and some things take energy to create, and other things cause energy to dissipate, like nuclear fissions, fires, all that kind of stuff. What kind of fire will take ash and burn into wood?
It's not the way of things.
No, does not work like that. That's what the past is really, the ash, not the wood. The wood is in the present moment. The fire is real, giving warmth. But the ash is only the results of a dead, long ago, here now. And it doesn't exist anymore. So both the personality view and the view of attachments to rites, rules, and rituals and the way things ought to be are both dealing with the past and getting rid of that so that we can now fully live in the present to deal with how things are now.
Yeah.
And this is when we begin to fully eradicate the doubt, is because that's what we begin to understand. That this path of the Buddha of being in the here now, of having wholesome thoughts and unwholesome thoughts, is a dang sight better way to live than the way that I was living, all attached to who I was, giving myself a bunch of rules and stuff like that, being critical of everything and making myself miserable for it. And so this is the way that we understand now. And so this is part of that newly found confidence that we could do this. We can handle this. This is the real confidence that is the eradication of the doubt.
Yeah. So could you think of this path as like the next stage of human evolution? Like we've kind of done with the physical evolution, and now we need to go to the mind and evolve that to become kind of truly human, if for lack of a better term. That
you're
because
absolutely
evolution,
right.
like, you're meant to get stronger and stronger, and it seems that maybe physically the human race is maybe not doing that just because of interventions and things.
Well,
the way we live, but maybe mentally, if we can evolve.
Well, we can go off and explore that just a bit. And the way that I would start exploring it is by mentioning something that Dr. Martin Luther King said, in the sense that the arc of nature is long, but it bends, or the arc of the universe is long, but bends into justice. It bends in the direction of justice. So this is an indication of what we're talking about that you're mentioning also, that if we change the word justice into the word knowledge, then it fits. If we change the word knowledge into liberation, then that also fits, okay? That in fact, knowledge is the key in the sense that justice can only be applied with full knowledge. That if there's lies and deceit and acrimony and hidden things, justice is not served. Also, the same point about freedom depends upon knowledge. And so, as we gain knowledge, as we gain insight into the way that our own mind works, each one of us can gain freedom. The question is that at what kind of mass scale can that happen? The answer is we don't know,
That was
because
going to
it's
be my next
never
question.
happened at a mass scale. But it almost
The world
did.
would have to change drastically if that happened.
Well, actually, no. It would be that the people who are living in that world would be drastically confused when so many other people just kind of left it.
Mm.
That in fact, in Bhutan, you probably heard of the nation of Bhutan. They are intentionally cloistered in the sense that it's hard to get a visa and things like that, but they don't even have there a gross domestic product. They have a gross domestic happiness, and the government is dedicated to doing that.
Wow, that's
To
amazing.
giving the kids a good education and giving the people what they need, and making it a truly Buddhist socialist country. And nobody has a clue about what they're doing because, in fact, it is kind of a Shangri-La.
What's a Shangri-La?
A Shangri-La is one of these mountain kingdoms where everybody is happy and everything works correctly, and the American man gets his beautiful girl there. You know that kind of story.
So are they still doing that then? That's still what they're doing.
Pardon?
Are they still doing that then? Is that still
Yes,
how they work?
yes, you can look up Bhutan on the internet and see what they're doing. I haven't been keeping track of it, but I'm pointing out that um, even governments can start thinking in that direction. That in fact, you know that in most English language countries, the word communism is a dirty, dirty word, right? And that word is applied to socialist Russia in those days, but the word didn't fit what Lenin and Stalin were doing. They were just being authoritarian and stealing everything and doing it in the name of communism. Because communism actually has to have people's willing permission to live in a community. It's something you join, it's not something that you're forced into. And when we recognize that it's easier to, here's an example of that. Let us say that you had a small town USA that had one particular thing. It just kind of started like that, but that was just that they had one lawnmower in the whole town, and everybody used that lawnmower, and that it was would sit idle, and people, when they would finish with it, would put it out on their lawn, and somebody could come and find it and take it and use it for someplace else. And the only point was that if it broke, you had to repair it if it broke on your watch. And if you think about it, the whole town. Now, in the United States, most local towns like that, everybody owns their own lawnmower. So let's say that lawnmower could be used by 100 people.
Yeah.
We would only need 1% of all the lawnmowers if the people shared it willingly.
Yeah.
All right. But if somebody wants to hide that lawnmower in his garage for some reason, then the whole show falls apart.
Yeah.
Now, there's another story that goes in the opposite direction, and that is, imagine that this beautiful Bavarian town had an enormous pasture that was every year would be completely loaded with flowers, a complete, just beautiful pasture that was on the side of the hill. And people played and they sat under the tree and things like that. But one girl got the idea that she's going to take a bunch of these flowers, put it in a basket, and tie them up and sell them out on the road. And she started doing that, and another girl saw her, so she started getting flowers. And within 2 weeks, every lady in town had gone there and gotten flowers, and all the women are now standing on this dirt road waiting for traffic to come by so that they can sell the flowers, but there's no flowers left on the hill.
Yeah.
Okay, that's capitalism.
Mm.
So, what we need is a better system for society, and that as we started talking about it, in the sense that knowledge is going to be the solution. In fact, we've known that forever. That's why so many people do not want their kids to go to university. They don't want those kids knowledgeable about things that don't agree with what mom and dad used to think. Also, the internet will eventually uh, go through a cleanup process, in the sense that newer things stay new and older things kind of rot away. So old news will not be looked at. It gets shoved off to some server farm way out in the boonies. It's hard to access, things like that. And that will happen with a lot of the falseness, so that the internet will over time get better. As we said, the arc of the universe bends towards justice. The internet bends towards correct information.
Mm.
That in fact, we've had several revolutions in history. One was writing itself, either cuneiform or hieroglyphics, but our first forms of writing literally transformed society.
Yeah, absolutely.
That fast forward to the Gutenberg press. And now that we have the printing press, so that printed information is not handwritten, but it can be disseminated broadly. And that was a revolution. Wow, what a revolution. The Industrial Revolution came out of that, the Renaissance, everything came out of the Gutenberg press. Okay, well, the Gutenberg press came along really, really early, like 1500 or so, before much of the Industrial Revolution and the Renaissance ever got started. So it took quite a long time for things to get rolling. How long have we had the internet now, the next revolution?
Hasn't been very long at
Not
all.
for very long. No, at best, maybe 25 years,
Yeah, it's
closer to
about, yeah.
20 years. Okay. So this is brand new on the scene, and look at the profound impact it's already had on so many things.
Yeah, well, I mean, we wouldn't be talking today if we didn't have it.
That's one thing. Also, look at how many high quality university courses are on YouTube.
Yeah.
You could do almost anything if you know how to look. You can learn how to do calculus. You can learn how to program a computer. You can learn how to do almost anything by watching the videos.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Okay. That in
Yeah.
fact, all I need to do is know the model number of this laptop and write onto the internet, and I can pull up the manual for that computer
Yeah. Yeah.
and know all about it. So this is the point that I'm making, is that we're actually going through a revolution, and that revolution is also going to be including AI and robotics and all kinds of things, and life is going to be changing. It's going into the fast lane. Okay. That we started out in society in very, very low gear until we got hieroglyphics and cuneiform, and that put us into second gear. And then we went into third gear with Gutenberg's press. And now we've just gone into fourth gear, and we've probably got several more gears to go into, but we're really flying along now. And what we're talking about now is in two ways. One is that the humanity is ahead of itself scientifically, and we're lagging behind emotionally, but we're catching up also emotionally. that in fact, 50, 75 years ago, uh, people were often an emotional wreck.
I think a
They
lot of
did
people
not
still
know,
are, to be honest.
right, but we're coming out of it as a society, some.
Do you
An
think?
example of that is because of politics and religion and the internet and the combination of that, the younger group of people who are in their 20s now have completely different mindsets than their parents did. And that wasn't true 100 years ago. 100 years
Yeah,
ago, people would keep the same mindset as their parents, but now things are changing.
yeah, no, in that way it's definitely good. But I mean, mental health and kind of suicide rates and stuff are just terrible at the moment.
We could
Feels
have a
quite
whole different
worrying.
topic on the pros
I
and
know,
cons of suicide. I mean, we all
I
do
know.
it
There's so much I
eventually,
could talk about. Yeah,
but in fact, you could go so far as to say every moment is a suicide. Every moment that arises passes away. Everything that flitters up flitters back down, and things are constantly rolling, constantly in turmoil, constantly in flux. And as we've just talked about in the respect of the gear, we're now in civilization's fourth gear that
yeah,
now
that's
includes for the
fascinating.
first time the fact that we're now starting to make real progress emotionally. That before humans were still animals emotionally, run by instincts, and that the whole society's teaching pattern had to do with boogeyman and spooks in the closet, aliens in the air, sky daddies, and magic here, there, and the other thing, and all kinds of things to make us afraid. And so we did really well to make our society quite safe, and yet the people are all still afraid.
Yeah,
And so now that we've figured out how to make society safe enough so that we're actually safe, let us now go that next step and learn how to live our lives feeling safe.
yeah, yeah, because it does seem like there is a lag that, we've
Yes.
taken thousands and thousands of years to evolve, millions of years to evolve to this space, and then, we seem to still be perfectly adapted to living,
Hmm.
more of a hunter-gatherer life, and then suddenly you
Exactly. We
shove
are,
this
in fact,
within like
that's
a few hundred
perfect.
years, our society changes so drastically, and the body and the mind just seem to just be like, what the hell is going on? And it makes sense why mental health is not great and things like that, because we
Right.
just haven't caught up yet. And
So,
that's why I meant with the evolution, that if you do this kind of work, then maybe you can learn to adapt more to this, to what
uh,
the society that we've created for ourselves, and then we can carry on our evolution instead of just kind of almost devolving and being stuck.
precisely, you've got it wired. That's exactly what we're talking about. So, in that sense, we can say that intellectually, humans are ahead of themselves emotionally. But that intellectual part will help the emotional catch up, at least up to where we are intellectually. But by the time that we get the emotionals up to where we are intellectually today, the intellect will be even higher than that, that it will always lag behind a little bit. And there's another way of talking about it, and we're talking about it here in the sense of generalities or the entire society. But let's look at it in an individual level, because this is where it really impacts us. And that is you and me and the people in your universe, your world and mine, and that kind of thing has changed now, thanks to some remarkable stuff. And one of those things that happened goes right back to the Buddha, that the Buddha decided that people can get this, that they can figure it out, that they can individually bring their emotional state up to the level of their intellect on an individual level.
And then that would filter through to societal level and all this.
And that's the teaching of the Buddha, is to come out of our instinctual lives that were, let us say, born and bred in the families of, if we go back far enough, apes. And it is up to each individual baby human ape to grow up fully into being a human. But we need the skills to do that. We need the tools to do that. And those tools have been more or less hidden away in the Sangha for 2,000 years because of the dangers from, let us say, other predatory apes. There's some reasons, though, why the Brahmins wiped out Buddhism in India in the 12th through the 14th century. Buddhism is dangerous,
Well, it
downright
makes
dangerous
people
to
really
religions.
empowered, and they're able to think for themselves and not be manipulated. And
Precisely.
then how are you meant to control people if they're all just like, nah, sorry, you don't, doesn't affect me.
Right.
You know, advertisements and stuff suddenly doesn't work on us.
That's right. The propaganda doesn't work.
Like we're immune to it.
We become immune to the stuff that is pointing at the instinctual, to become afraid or to have feelings about it, that we can, in fact, stay in intellect long enough to work through it so that we don't have to deal at an emotional level. We can stay at a bright, happy, intelligent level. That we can do this, that we do not have to follow the instincts, because the instincts are almost always unwholesome.
In this,
Mm-hmm.
in the world we live in. But I suppose they would have served us great when we were hunter gatherers, because they would have kept us alive. But it's just now they're not, like we said, they just haven't caught up, and so they're not really sufficient.
Right. So let us say then that because of various things, including some enemies, that the Sangha kept the real teachings of the Buddha alive, but they kept them secret, in the sense that the only people who got to know the teachings of the Buddha, who were those who were asking the right questions at the right time to the right people. And so they would always get informed. That happened slightly differently to Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, because he had already figured it out the right thing, and he was letting it out and broadcasting it, and he got into a whole lot of trouble from those who didn't understand. It caused a trial, and that trial came to the conclusion, after a lot of research and a lot of Pali retranslations and whatnot, that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa was teaching the right thing to the wrong people.
Right.
Bingo. And he made a lot of good friends, and was introduced actually then into the nobility of the Sangha that already pre-existed in Thailand, that he kind of stumbled on it on his own. And then he was allowed in because of his public statements. That happens also sometimes. But Bhikkhu Buddhadasa has also said, and has said since then, that there is absolutely no longer a reason in the 20th or the 21st centuries to keep this stuff hidden anymore. And this is why Achan Po wants me out on internet putting this stuff out there, so that people can figure out that I can figure out who I am, or at least I can figure out who I am not, and who I am not is what I used to be. And number two, we can figure out that the world is not really far away. It's right here in front of us. It touches us. We're in the world, and we react and respond to the world. And when we respond to the world with criticism, we're going to get a critical response. If we respond to the world nurturing, we're going to get a nurturing response, just like we do on the inside. So we start treating the world the way we've just newly learned to treat ourselves on the inside. And when we put that together, we recognize, wow, what a powerful path this is. And each individual can do that, and that we can put this out, and many people can begin to understand it, because basically what we call Western Buddhism is like a jigsaw puzzle with a couple of key pieces gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so plugging those things back in so that people can recognize that you've got to put some skin in the game, you've got to change the way you think. You got to actually pay attention to unwholesome thoughts and put wholesome thoughts in place instead. And by the way, Olivia, I'd like to ask you one question, even though I already know the answer to it, and it could basically be asked in the form of, by the way, how are you feeling?
Yeah, good.
Okay. If 1 year ago, if I had asked you that question, what would you have answered?
Probably overwhelmed or sad or frustrated or any number of those things. Not good.
You see what I mean? This is what I'm here for, is to recognize that long-term change over time that can only be effective each individual moment. We have to change this individual moment, and the changes in this moment, like a butterfly effect, will build up over time, so that now your entire feeling systems are different than they were a year or two ago.
Yeah.
That the complaints, the psychosomatic complaints that you had a year ago, you don't even have them now. If I hadn't have brought them up, you wouldn't have even remembered them. And so I really do want to congratulate you. This is really marvelous.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
It's good.
Yes.
So continue on, making sure that you practice a little bit every day. One of the things that I'm recommending now for the students is that when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do before you get out of bed is take 5 or 10 minutes, because you take 5 or 10 minutes anyway, but take 5 or 10 minutes to do some breathing and to put yourself into really, wow, what a wonderful day this is. Well, I'm going to have fun today. Everything's going to be okay. Everything's fine. Got this one to do. And in the evening,
I
when you
think
go to
it's good
bed,
to do that before bed as well. Oh, look. Yeah.
pardon, what?
I just said, before you said it, I said, I think it's quite good to do that just before you go to bed as well. And then you went to go and say it.
Yes, exactly. And just as you go to bed, you go up with the idea of snuggling up. Oh, it feels so good. I got no place to go and nothing to do for the next 8 hours. I'm just going to lay here and just enjoy the night. And this is the way to practice. Practice
Yeah.
at least that much. And then during the day, you can stop and think 2 or 3 times, just to stop and go, ah, wow, what a nice moment this is.
Yeah.
And remember to watch the breathing, and make the breathing long on the in breath and long on the out breath, and everything will be okay.
Mm-hmm. Before I go, I just wanted to say that I really like what you've done with the YouTube channel, with the timestamps and the like the titles to the videos. It's really
You
helpful.
please
Really.
write a comment for that, because Keyshawn is doing that stuff, and Parker is also helping. Keyshawn and Parker have been
Oh, okay.
doing that stuff. So leave a comment or two when you like what they've done.
All right, I will. Yeah, no, it's really helpful. Ah, so you've got like a little team, have you, together?
Yeah, we've got a team going. We've got a convoy.
Ah, that's good.
Yes. There's also a website under development that has it's actually done in England by Matt Gold, and it's a nonprofit, an NGO that we've got the website for, that is designed around uh, bringing people into though, because there's a lot of us who want to learn how to teach the Dhamma. or they want to teach the Dhamma, but they don't have any clue. And the old business model in the West is, oh, well, if you want to teach the Dhamma, you got to build a Dhamma center.
Yeah.
But
And
then
pay a lot of money.
and pay a lot of and so all of that, and so it winds up being business oriented. So we're looking for a way of working with the Asian Watts and the budding teachers to have them spend some time in the Watts, living with the monks and living a lay life and a monthly life as a mix, and then beginning to teach there, so that they don't have to work. They can live and have a good life and devote it to the Dhamma. And if they want to ordain sometime, they can do that, but that would be optional.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay, and
great.
so it has several aspects to it. One is to bring the West and the East together. Another aspect is to bring Dhamma teachers together so that we can work together in harmony rather than in competition.
Mm. Yeah.
So that's what, and the name of it is Open Sangha Collective.
Okay.
I'll send you a link.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be good.
All righty.
Okay.
Well, this has been a really nice conversation. I really enjoyed it. We've talked about the first three fetters.
Yeah, no, it's been really good. Really enjoyed it.
Excellent. Well, that's because you're coming in with a great success story, and I'm really pleased. So continue on.
I will. Yeah.
We made enormous progress. I'm so pleased.
Thank you. I will see you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.